Hi, everybody, and welcome to our latest episode of A Justice Seeking Church here at Shoreline Methodist Community. I think I've said this already, but our news is so full of so many issues. And what should our response be? How do we know what to say? How can we get involved in so many of these conversations that are difficult and sometimes can feel way, way, way beyond us? But I think, and certainly I think this community thinks, it's where we're called to be. Tonight, Simeon from JPIT, he's going to be with us and he's going to help unpack some of the difficult issues that are going on at the moment. Simeon, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
How are you doing? All right?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, in fact, I'm feeling quite energized today, which we were just talking before we started, weren't we? That JPIT held its conference at this last weekend. So I'm just kind of emerging after that. And we had a wonderful day. Being together with other justice seekers is tremendously kind of uplifting and it's left me feeling full of hope, actually. Because, as you say, it's hard times at the moment to be someone who's committed to justice. There are so many difficult things going on in our communities, in our politics, in our world. But there is great solidarity that comes from remembering there are other people who feel the same and who want to work together, and who each, if we play our part, something good can come.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Sometimes we can feel isolated, can't we? Sometimes it can feel that we're the only one in our friendship group, sometimes in our churches, that are really being affected by this. So, yeah, I think it is good that we just spend some time in solidarity with others. So that was called For Goodness Sake, is that correct?
That's right, yeah, for goodness sake. And it's a lovely kind of play on words, because how often do we find ourselves shouting that at the radio or the telly when we hear about something going, oh, for goodness sake. And then we think, well, we also hear the words in the Psalms and throughout Scripture of God calling us to goodness and asking us to act for goodness sake. And where does that take us? You know, the reminder that there is goodness to be found and goodness to be done all around us.
Nice. So what was your highlight from the weekend?
Well, we heard some brilliant speakers, a whole range of them, but one particularly was Sally Foster Fulton, who is works with Christian Aid in Scotland and has been a moderator of the Church of Scotland, and she was talking about the subversive wisdom of the Gospels and how that reminds us that things start small, and we might feel that they're not really worthwhile, but they gradually grow and spread and have an immense impact. And I think I needed to hear that reminder on Saturday. So yeah, that was one of the highlights for me.
Yeah. Jesus was so countercultural, was so subversive, and sometimes we just try and play him nice, don't we?
Yes, or forget altogether the wisdom that Jesus has to offer us. So yes, I think that's quite easy to do.
Yeah, and who he went and spoke with, and who he sat down with, and who he said, no, you are seen, you are loved, and you are welcome. Yeah, bit to learn from there, isn't there? Yes. Now, I think you were one of the speakers as well at the weekend.
Yes, yeah, I led various parts, including a session where we wanted to dig a bit deeper into the things that are going on in our communities and our society that we've sort of seen more in the last few months. I don't know, have flags gone up where you are, Wayne? Have they appeared on lampposts or on roundabouts or?
Absolutely, even on pebbles on the beach. Yes, they have.
And how do you feel about them?
Unsettled. You know, they did start to appear when the rugby was on, when the women's rugby. So, but they started to appear in places that you just go, okay, I think there is another motive. You know, that this feels unsettling. When somebody, I went to a chapel one Sunday, got lost, had to turn around, and there on the white hashes, on the marks on the road, somebody had painted little white flags, and I'm going, yeah, that's not about the rugby, is it? That's our different agenda. So to me, I feel quite agitated by it all. So yeah, if you can help us to express how we're feeling, that would be wonderful.
Well, I think there's quite a lot to dig into. We're used to the flags flying when there's a big match for the national team on. We're used to flags flying from public buildings and for royal birthdays and whatnot. But there's something else going on, isn't there, at the moment that's more than just that. Something in our society, something in our politics that's resulting in people wanting to assert ownership, assert control over our streets, perhaps. And I think it's the same kind of thing that's resulted in the protests that we've seen around accommodation, housing people who are seeking asylum. I think it's the same kind of thing that's resulting in people I know who are not white British reporting they're feeling that they're experiencing increased hostility on the streets. It's the same phenomenon that we might link to the rise in support for political parties and policies that are certainly on the populist right. Some would define it as far right. And it's also a phenomenon that's tied up with Christianity. And I don't know if you've noticed some of those kind of protests, some of those movements have been using, well, obviously the English flag is a cross, but people are more explicitly drawing on Christian symbols and using prayer and proclaiming Jesus is Lord as they protest against others in their communities. So there's a lot of things going on, and we wanted to take time in our conference to try and dig a bit more deeply into that. As we're justice seekers, one of the ways that as we seek to understand and respond to that is to begin with deep listening to those in our communities with least power. And that's always a good way to start, whether that's people who are experiencing injustice or oppression or marginalization of a different sort. So that includes those Black and brown people who are talking about having encountering levels of racism that they hadn't seen since the 70s. And that's significant, isn't it? It's a real significant change.
Yeah.
Listening to refugees and those who are suddenly fearful of leaving the place where they have been sent by the Home Office to live. But also, I think, listening to people who are experiencing poverty, economic dispossession, who feel they're being left behind when it comes to things like access to housing or public services. Those are all voices that I think we should be attentive to as justice seekers, because they're all people who are in different ways not holding power. And the more that we look at this, and the more that just as I talk about those different groups, you see how complex and how challenging some of that is. The language and the definitions that we use to talk about them are also complex. And it may not be as straightforward as it first seems. I wonder, Wayne, if I asked you in one or two words to describe the state of the UK today, what would you say?
I would say troubled and anxious.
Yeah. Well, you're not alone in thinking that. There's been polling done over the last few months where people across Britain have been asked that question, and the words that come up most often when people are asked that question are broken, mess, struggling, and divided. They're the top four, and most of the words are of that kind of ilk, that kind of thing. And then when you ask people, what do you think the main problem that we're facing is? What do you think people said?
See, I'm wondering whether it's financial, but that doesn't feel. I'll go with financial, but yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right. The cost of living is how people described it. Yeah, the cost of living, and you'd think, wouldn't you, perhaps from some of the stuff that's been going on in our politics, the things we just talked about, that people might say immigration at that point. You know, that has become for some people a thing that they are blaming for the state of the country. But actually, no, that's very, very low down on the list for most people. 77% of people said cost of living was the biggest issue, the biggest problem. And perhaps it's not then surprising that people are feeling feeling upset, feeling cross, feeling disempowered when they don't see an end to that in sight. One more question from this poll, which I thought was really instructive. How does current politics make you feel? You might want to be our sample of one. Wayne, again, what do you think? What word do you think you would use?
Again, I think it depends on who you listen to, because I think, you know, we're getting very, it feels like we're getting divisive sort of comments. But again, I think I hear a lot of dissatisfaction with our politics.
Yeah. 3/4 of people said it made them frustrated.
Yeah.
And 60% of people said it made them feel angry. Yeah. 9% said that it made them feel hopeful, and 3% politics made them feel happy. So, you know, the large majority of people are not happy with politics at the moment. And actually, that's something that's not significantly shifted, although we've had a big change in government. That was the same 18 months ago as it is now. You know, there's minor changes as there've been elections and so on, but overall politics is not answering the questions that people have and the needs that people feel they have. And I think that helps us to understand a bit better some of the reasons why people are feeling angry and disempowered, and why that's finding its outlets in all these different ways, many of them we might say sort of unproductive ways, or perhaps looking in the wrong place for answers. But that leaves space for bad actors, for the kind of organizers on the far right, for social media companies who've got a different agenda from most of us around the good of society, to stir things up and to seek to polarize our communities. One of the people who's been reflecting on this, and I found really helpful, is someone called Michael Sandel. He's a philosopher based in the States, and he's been looking at this phenomenon from an American perspective. And obviously, when you look at what's happened with the election of President Trump, and twice, and the kind of things that are going on in American society, that there are parallels with what's happening here. And his observation from his research is that it's a mistake to see these kind of popular protest things as just as bigotry, or to view them as just about economics. He says that the populist backlash that brought Trump to power was fueled not only by economic hardship, but by a sense of humiliation, by the feeling among many people that the elite was looking down on them, that their struggles were being dismissed, that their dignity was being denied. He said people feel unmoored. People hunger for a sense of belonging, a sense of pride, a sense of solidarity. And these are the sources of the discontent that Donald Trump managed to tap into. But I think when we go back to, you know, the start of our conversation and the flags, this is people are looking for something to express a sense of pride and a sense of solidarity and belonging. And that might be really the deeper underlying point that's going on in our communities. So I wonder what we can do. What can we do around all of that? And I've got a few suggestions, but I wanted, you know, this to be something that we think about together, and that you know, I don't think any of us have got all the answers on this, but I am convinced that this is something that we shouldn't just ignore and hope it goes away. I think something quite deep is going on in our communities and our society, and it would be a mistake to ignore that. So one of the things, as I said, good work for justice starts with deep listening. And I think trying to find spaces where we can listen to people who take a different view from us, maybe people have expressed a view that's given us pause for thought, and we go, oh, why are you saying that? Why are you doing it? Why have you put your flag up? You know, let's not immediately jump in with oh, I don't like that. Let's start with an openness to listening and understanding where people are coming from. Yes, challenge where that's might be based on misinformation or misunderstanding. But let's listen. Let's listen to people first, because no understanding can come without listening. And then let's talk about these things in church. Let's talk about these things in the places where we are. One of the things that's going on is I think, draws on a corruption of the Christian faith, because if the Christian faith is being used to divide us or to exclude people, that's not the Christianity that I know and believe in. You know, someone in an event I was at a few weeks ago was saying, you know, if it rhymes with love, then it comes from God. But if it doesn't rhyme with love, then it can't be. You know,
Right.
so you know, it's a corruption of the faith to use it to exclude people, to make people feel fearful. But there are things within our faith that need unpacking, that need careful understanding, that need, you know, critical thinking. So let's be doing that in our churches. One resource I would point to for people if they're interested in looking at the kind of political dimensions of the gospel and of the faith. JPIT produces every week a podcast called Politics in the Pulpit, and I think you've put the link on in the QR code in the corner. Thank you. And that we have a host and a guest and a member of the team who talk together about the forthcoming Sunday's lectionary readings and how we might link those to the kind of political questions of the day and see the kind of the messages for those of us who are justice seekers. So yeah, let's think critically in our churches about some of this stuff. Let's remember who the victims are of some of this stuff as well, recognizing particularly the deep fear that refugees are feeling at the moment, because many of those flags that have gone up were very much in a sense of, well, if you're not British, you're not welcome here. So we're part of a group called Together with Refugees, which brings together hundreds of organizations who are working in support of refugees, charities, faith groups, trade unions, and others. That coalition is organising for a month of action during November and December, so that we can have a moment to together express our sense of welcome and standing in solidarity with refugees, and create a wall of orange hearts, which is just as strong as the demonstration of flags earlier in the year. So if you go to our website, you can order posters to put up in your window saying, "I'm standing in solidarity with refugees this month." So that's one way that you might want to get involved in that as well. Yeah. And the last thing I kind of leave us with is that question about how people find a sense of belonging, a sense of pride, a sense of solidarity. And it really strikes me that churches are a place where that happens, where that could happen and should happen, and whether that's an online church or a gathered community. If people are seeking that, and I believe people really are and always have been seeking that, how might we, through our missions, through our outreach, help people to be invited into a space which is a more fruitful way of experiencing those things than perhaps some of those other phenomena that we were talking about earlier? Because I think Christianity has a lot to offer those who seek a sense of belonging, a sense of pride, and a sense of solidarity.
Yeah, it is. And I think as you were talking there, Simeon, you were helping me to go, you know, we've just got to calm this all down, because sometimes I feel so emotional, and that perhaps might not come out in the most constructive way, you know. And if we can all just go, okay, so let's talk, as you said, let's put the kettle on. Everybody has a right to their opinions. How we engage in a constructive dialogue, that's the question, isn't it? And I love how you say, if it doesn't rhyme with love, it's not of God. So let's just work on that. A couple of weeks ago, we had Netta from Spring Forest in America. And she talks about how they use food to break a lot of these barriers down, you know, and she gave us an image of a rainbow plate, you know, where it's not beige, it's rainbow. And again, that really hit me. You know, we can all start simple. We have spaces we can meet. Where can we find ways to make them accessible, welcoming for all? And as all, you know, the big thing I've learned about all of these programs we've done, you all tell us it's just about being with people, listening and sharing, you know, listening to hear, not listening to respond. And that's how we build the kingdom that God foresees, not the devices, human ones that we see. Simeon, really appreciate you coming in and sharing with us. Again, I love it when people come and just prod us and jab us and go, we can change this world. It takes a little effort. It takes a little step, but we're bound by God's love to do what we can. If you'd like more, I've put the QR code up. I'll flash it up again. Just scan this or look for JPIT. There is a whole website full of resources that you can join in. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's see where we can all take this. Our streets, our world needs to be places of love, not hate, not division, not them and us, but all one, bound in God's love. Thank you, Simeon. Thank you all for joining us. Please share these messages, and together we can change this world. God bless.